Now, this one here is a practice that my teacher, Peter Levine, is a huge fan of. He uses it in almost every single session I've ever seen him do. So we can again say it's useful for everybody, but I would say it's most useful and most safe to use. Let's say it's not most useful, it's most safe to use. Most safe to use for somebody who has more sympathetic in their nervous system. Like if you're really trying to figure out, you don't want to tip somebody because you're new to them, there's no nervous system, then you want to only be introducing this if they've got more sympathetic. So the appease or more sympathetic tone, okay? So it's great for regulating the sympathetic response into ventral vagal, okay? Because you're actually going to bring in a bit of sympathetic. So the orienting is this very, very gentle mobilization. But this one we're actually going to introduce vibration, which is mobilization, in the viscera itself, so in the organs itself. So it's actually quite a direct intervention. Although it's done gently, it's a very direct internal intervention. Okay, so again, it must always be trauma informed in that it's done gently, but it's a much deeper and more direct approach. Okay, so I'd love for you to try this with me. And if any of you feel like this could be too much, then sit yourselves out. It's not a problem. And, you know, you can try it at another time when you maybe feel more confident to titrate it more, or that you just are in a different space today. Okay, so the invitation is to sit it out if you wish. Now, I'm just going to make sure that I can see you all. Anybody who wants to turn on their camera so that I can see you, feel free. I find it always helps for me to keep an eye on people when I'm introducing something like this, okay? It's not dangerous, but I like to just keep an eye on people. So the first thing I suggest we do is we do a cleansing breath. Now, the idea of this is not to, you're all on mute anyway, but it's not to sound pretty. It's actually to make quite a vulgar sound, all right? It's meant to sound like a foghorn. That's, you know, without you trying to sound like a foghorn, you know, sound like a foghorn. Because so you're not omming, you know, with a beautiful tone, and that's, you know, works because we're all got our microphones off, but you'll hear me, because the lower and kind of more coarse the sound, the more vibration you're likely to experience in your gut and your viscera. Okay, so that's why I'm going to go, even though I'm a high soprano, I'm going to go for a low tone. Okay, and some people will only feel it as far as the throat. A lot of people feel it to the thymus, some to the heart, and occasionally people get it as far as the gut. Okay, often the gut is when you've done it a few times and the system, the vibrations can find their way down. We've all got a lot of tightness in that part of our body. So it depends on how much space you have, depends on how much vibration you're going to feel. Okay. So that breath again. And you're not going to go to the end of your breath, because if you went to your end of your breath, there would be too much vibration. So this is one way that you can titrate it, you can monitor it, is you just do a bit of a voo. And then you just check, did anything change? Am I aware of anything? Some people find a tightness or a dizziness that they're aware of, like a tightness in their head or a dizziness, or a little wavering in their eyes, which is like a prelude to dizziness, if you like. Right? Can be something like that. Or just some other kind of like, oh, just, yeah, I don't feel quite settled in some way. I can't really tell, especially when you do it that small for the first time. You may not have noticed anything, or you might just go, okay, minute. Most of you should be ready to try this again. Okay, if you're not, don't. Okay, just pick it up. We'll do it 3 times, so pick it up the 3rd time. most of you should be ready by now to have another try, and we're going to just do it for a tiny bit longer. And even this time to imagine, so we're going to push it a little bit more if you did okay the first time. Imagine you're trying to push through a bit more fog. You know, you're the foghorn trying to push through more fog in the harbour. So there'll just be a little bit more strength. Okay. So pushing a little bit harder, going a little bit longer will create more vibration. And so, you know, I noticed, and it's already coming back to normal, but I noticed that my voice kind of sounded slightly different to myself, which means it's almost like, for me, it's almost like a prelude to a prelude of feeling dizzy that never gets there. And it's just simply because there's been a vibration in the nervous system. So that tells me is like my nervous system's been vibrated, been moved around, been jiggled. I can still know it's there, even though I don't feel jiggled or I don't feel dizzy, because I have an impulse to be more gentle. I can feel that in my own system. I want to be more gentle. And so that tells me that something's moved, right? So that's how subtle we sometimes have to get with our observation. It's like, yeah, we can't feel the dizziness. Yeah, it's not dizzy, but I just started to become aware of something at the back of like the skin on my skull. It's all going to settle. It's so tiny and so subtle. And you may or may not be aware of some of those things, but sometimes you can catch the behavior that might tell you that. So it's the prelude to or the post, and then that gives you some information.